Jimmy.
Gosh, damn, that was quick.
Hey,
Going
what's
right
up, dude?
away.
Oh, dude, so good to see you, man. It's been so long. It's been a super long time.
Yeah, for all of us, for a lot of.
Yeah,
I mean, I've done a lot of teaching from
yeah,
classrooms, colleges to you know,
yeah,
whoever, whatever. I like giving back.
yeah. No,
Lucky.
I mean that's in my mind as a key grip coming up. Like I always like thought of you as a teacher and someone that brought people up through the ranks and brought
Who
them up
knew?
properly.
Who knew?
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, a
I
lot of
guess
people
since
did.
I
A
was,
lot of people did.
that's cool. I mean, I've always had such a massive respect for the groups.
Yeah,
You know, there's one group of people that I always felt had my back.
yeah.
Uh, and it was always the grips. I mean, it's funny because I lean on gaffers for like a voice.
Hmm.
I lean on the grips for like having my back and covering me and even I mean back in the early days when I was an assistant, it's like that's when I leaned on the grips heavily.
Yeah,
Like when
yeah.
because I used to carry big heavy cameras, all this stuff. It's like the one group that always had you.
You're always closest, even though, like, I mean, you're always close to your crew, but the ACs is like that's the closest people from another department that you get to.
Oh yeah.
Because, as a dolly grip, like, especially doing commercials, like keying from a dolly, you find yourself, it's you in the first AC trying to pull all this chaos together and keeping it, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of a sudden, they're swinging to from a 20 mil.
Yeah, yeah, and also keeping it safe. It's
Yeah.
funny. It brought up a story way back in the early days when I was just figuring out how to be a focus puller and just got lucky enough where somebody gave me an opportunity.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to ride on the dolly because I was like, well, there's someone pushing it. I'm going to add 150 pounds.
It's true.
And who knows who the dolly grip was? He's probably retired, but he just looked at me. He's like, look, oh, he just, yeah, the key grip or the dolly grip was like, no, just sit on the dolly. Your feet won't get run over. You're going to pull better focus and things like that. Like they saw that I was probably young and naive. Geez, I was probably 25 years old pulling
Yeah.
focus on a VistaVision camera.
Yeah.
Um, but they had me. I mean, I don't think I ever, well, there is one grip who shall remain nameless. They threw me under two.
I was about to say, I was like, come on, that's got to be a very thin list because I mean, we all know. Like,
Yeah, but
I mean, I,
overall,
I was a key grip for 25 years, and I can tell you, or 20 of the 25 years, and I can tell you, like, there's people that you butt heads with, and you figure out ways to kind of mess with them and keep them in check. But
yeah, but all you guys that sort of came up with Bill Buckingham, um,
the old hillbilly grips, yep,
and
that's
Bill was a
that was my
rebel
floor.
in every right. He was. I mean, we could probably talk for days about Bill.
And it's like, where do you start and where do you end? Kids.
Bill and everyone that worked with him, they really covered the camera department.
Yeah,
Like I said,
yeah,
I started as, I mean, I really got my start working with A-list crews doing photosonics cameras.
yeah.
Cameras weighed 150 pounds, and
I,
yeah,
I,
I could.
I believe it or not, and you're gonna love this. I actually did a photosonics job before I moved back out to Maine.
Well, yeah,
So,
I mean, in my 13 years as a photosonics tech, we put it on everything you could ever imagine. And even back
well,
then,
yeah, you got to brace it, but it's like,
yeah,
you know,
most of the VPs had no clue how to deal with it.
yep,
Most of the electricians were confused because I needed 208 volts or
just trying to plug it in. Yeah,
yeah. And I remember one time telling a guy, I need 208 and 208 was the minimum.
yep,
And it's kind of funny because we had a putt, we had the 5500
right,
and he plugged it into the 110 because I said I needed 208 and it said 220.
right, exactly.
And it
It's like,
wasn't, it was one of those things where I'm pulling the camera apart trying to figure out what's wrong with it. And this guy's sitting on his hands. And
come
finally,
come to come to find out, he's running half the, or not even half the power to it.
I don't know how he got the twist lock plugged into a 110 outlet, but he did. And
That's a home wire job that was probably terrifying to see.
yeah, but I mean, for me, it was like it was the most awesome experience because I got to work with people like you and Bill and
Yep.
Grover and
Yep.
Don McCall and the Big Belly Grips and all these people.
Yeah.
Because number one, the reason I wound up doing photosonics is because for God knows what reason, I'm really strong.
Yeah. Do you remember that studio down in? It was a post effects studio.
Yeah,
It
it was
was
New Deal.
New Deal. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
well,
was having
they had
I
other names before that, but it was New
yeah.
Deal. It was
So
in Marine Drive.
I had done Chronicles of Riddick down there
Yep.
on the I was on the effects unit, and we were down there for weeks because they kept screwing up and blowing up at the wrong time, and it was just chaos. But yeah, it's
Yeah, Big Belly Grips, Don and his brother
yeah.
Harry.
So I was on that stage, and I was literally solo king, no crew, doing this low budget little favor thing with the DP, and I had another job, and I was like, look, I'll donate like 3 or 4 days. So I went in for 3 or 4 days on like, I think it was $100 a day or so. It was nothing. And then they came in and took over after I left. Like, and then there was a 1 day transition, and I had built a crane and I forgot to put a piece into it. It was like a Lenny 2. It wasn't a big deal at all. It didn't affect anything, but at the same time, it was like, here come these big old hillbilly guys, and like, I'm used to working with Bill, but these guys came in there. I think they were brothers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they came in and they're just like, and just heckling me because I was like 20 something years old, and and I built this crane by myself, missing like a bolt or something, but it wasn't a critical factor, but it was hilarious. That was my experience with those guys, and I
Yeah.
never saw them again in the whole career that I've had. But
Yeah, they stayed really busy with New
great
Deal
guys.
and stuff. I brought them on an IMAX show we did. And one thing I loved about Don, I mean, I'll never forget his statements. One was always, boy, howdy,
Yeah,
boy, howdy. He
yeah,
said that a lot.
yes.
And the other one was, I've been to two world fairs and a pig roping contest, but I ain't never seen nothing like that. And oh, and it is Babe, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's
He had
funny
a
because
great
they were really great guys. They could have torn me apart as a young knucklehead key grip that was just like holding my own, trying to pick up a new DP, basically doing a favor job, and they just treated me like they treated me so nice as I transferred like half the job onto their lap. And here's the thing: it's like these guys are real key grips, like no question. They were professionals. They were badass. They were hillbillies. They were awesome. But like they're picking up a job that some kid that's 20 years old had just set up, and then just like trying to kind of clean up the mess that I had made of and like I always told my guys, I'm like, righty tighty, lefty, you're fired.
Yeah.
Half my stands were probably backwards, but it
Yeah,
was
I
pretty
was
awesome.
yeah, and like I said, I mean, I worked with Don and Harry a lot. I did a lot of the early Batman movies, that sort of thing. They
Yeah,
always took care of me. And then when I was transitioning, going from being an AC and a tech over to DP, all of a sudden your income takes a massive plunge. I'm
right.
talking, my income probably, I lost 70% of my income.
But also, isn't there a union law that like you can't once you make that transition, you can't kind of go back and maintain your income?
Correct. So for a lot of us, we kind of try to fly under the radar for as long as you can before they catch you.
Right.
But for me, it's like, so, on the work side, since I was so slow, I called up Don and Harry, and they brought me in on a few jobs. So it's funny, I'm working at New Deal, and it was, a non-union shoot, but I
It was
was
a
gripping, and I was probably like fourth hammer,
it was a
you
great
know?
studio too.
Yeah, and those guys took care of me. They didn't want me to get hurt or anything, but they knew I was capable of swinging a C stand and doing all the stuff necessary. And there was a Photosonics camera there, the 4ML,
Oh
and
yeah,
the assistant that was
she's a
running it.
she's a beast.
No, that one's the tiny one. It's kind of like an Aton. It's a small
it's
camera.
it's still a beast compared to what we're
Yeah,
using today.
it's
you gotta
true.
you gotta realize, like, I'd say 80-90% of the people that are gonna probably listen to this like are used to like a red or like this, and not realizing like what when a photosonics winds up, the shaking it does, and like that sound it makes when it blows through all the film.
So I'm there as like fourth, fifth hem or whatever. The AC's got a photosonics camera, which I am probably the most skilled at in the group. He
Right.
walks over and he's like, I can't load the magazines. So I have to go over there and show the AC, who had my job,
Uh-huh.
how to load the magazines. It's pretty funny. It's one of those things you don't take it personally. You just kind of laugh.
Yeah.
But then, there were many. Then, at the same time, my gaffer, Stuart Cropley, who we're all friends with,
Come on, Stewie.
Stuart Stuart would bring me in as like fourth or fifth electric.
Yeah.
Um, During that time when I was
Him
doing,
and his two brothers. It's
mostly Johnny.
yeah,
Yeah,
Johnny. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and Johnny's awesome.
Oh,
That guy, I love his sense of humor.
they're
Um,
great guys.
but they would bring me in as, fourth or fifth electric, even like a few years ago. I think just be part of the pandemic when, work was kind of sketchy and everything. Stuart still brought me in on a couple jobs, and he wasn't calling me for the job in the Mojave Desert. He was calling me for the studio job.
Yeah,
And
he wasn't calling you to kill you.
no, he was calling me because I needed money and I needed to work. And he would mostly put me in charge of just keeping the lights organized and the cables wrapped.
Yeah.
And, it, you know, I still, I mean, it's funny because I still love gripping. I
Yeah.
just, it's just hard, man. You guys take a massive hit to your physical.
It's
Jeez.
I can tell you I'm 47 and I feel a lot of those days. I mean, and I had a hip replacement at 36. I was one of the youngest people to ever have a hip replacement. And and I can tell you right now, the only reason I got a hip replacement, the doctor I went to turned out he actually was a teamster, and he worked as a teamster because his dad's best friend or something was like the president, but he worked as a teamster to pay for his medical school to
Nice.
become a surgeon. So he was like, I get it. And because he was like, I'm not going to do it. You're too young. He's like, come back in 5 or 6 years. And I was like, man, I'm like, I can't work. And finally, it wasn't until like he looked at my X-rays and I walked down he had me walk down the hallway. I had full necrosis, and it was a hot mess, but
Yeah, and I think
it was the best thing I ever did. I mean, I lost all my accounts basically. Had to like bring some of them back and just kind of almost start fresh. And I lost my best boy and I lost everyone, but it was like I couldn't work. It
yeah.
was like every time I was at the dolly, like one of my guys would come up with an apple box and be like, "Here, take a seat." And I'm like, "No," I'm like, I mean, you know me, you've worked with me. I just don't sit on set.
Yeah, and I think actually I hired you right after you were coming back, and I tried to hire
Yep,
Bill. Tried to
yep.
hire Bill many times and never. I don't think I ever did
Well,
successfully.
well, I'll
But
tell you a secret. You could hire Bill, and I guarantee either I would have showed up or
yeah,
maybe Deepak. It's like, and I'll tell you a really funny story. I literally Bill goes, "Hey, I need to go cover me on a job," which was common, but he goes, "But I got to tell you, you need to tell everyone you're Bill." He's like, "No one there knows me," and he goes, "It won't matter until you do your paperwork at the end." He goes, "They probably won't even notice that until they're filing it all." And he goes, "You're Bill Buckingham," and I was like,
nice.
are you kidding me?" He's like, "Nope." I was like, "All right," and I showed up, and thank God, like no one there. I didn't recognize anybody, which was very odd. No, it's just like everyone's like, "Hey, Bill," and like I just stand there. All of a sudden, I'm like, "Oh crap, I'm Bill." "Oh yeah, hey, what's up? What do you need?" It was priceless. I had to take my name badges off my harness and stuff. It was pretty darn funny. But that
Yeah, and I
was like,
think that was the gig that I think that was the first time you keyed with me was it was for a Chinese boxing company, and
yep.
Bill showed up and he's like, I'm like, great, Bill's here. He's like, yeah, I'm not staying.
He's like this.
Josh
High
is keying.
five. See, you
He,
gotta go.
he just got a hip replacement. Take it easy on him. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll tell you another one. We right before I moved out, we did a Chick-fil-A commercial, and the
Mhm.
gaffer hired me, and the gaffer brought me in. He's a great guy, young kid. He's on fire. We show up, and he doesn't really even tell me the details. Well, it turns out we were covering one of the other gaffers from this company that we were all working for, and no one told the DP. So we show
Okay.
up in the morning, the DP is just like, "Who the hell are you guys?" And I was like, "I'm your key grip." I was like, "This is the gaffer. You know Isaac, right?" And he's like, "Who?" He's like, I didn't hire this guy." And he's like, "You get wait, you guys got to be kidding me!" And like, because he was out of town guy, so he'd come into town, and I don't blame him. Like, if I hired a if I hired a crew from I was from out of town, I hired a crew, and I show up, there's just these random dudes. Even though, like, look, you were getting top. It's I
Yeah.
mean, you know us. It's like it's not like we're a bunch of knuckleheads. But in his mindset, he absolutely like he couldn't get over the fact that it wasn't the guy he hired, which is totally acceptable. I get it. It's part of the job, but it just sucked because I was like, he was a great DP, and I was like, really, we're all trying to like, come on, dude, like
Yeah. And all it
get
took was
get in
somebody
with
to
us.
tell him.
Like we're here to help, and we're good. We're not knuckleheads. And he just wouldn't. He just didn't fly. Made for a
Yeah.
very long day.
Like I said, all it took was just somebody to explain, hey, dude, I got to replace myself, and I'm going to replace you with an A-lister. It's
Yeah, I
funny because
mean,
the only time I dealt with, well, I dealt with that twice. Once was in Prague. I was
yep,
doing a job on, and on day two, all of a sudden Gapper's not there. I got the best boy.
right.
And as we know, a lot of times in lighting, like in grip, your best boy is probably just as good as your key.
Oh,
It probably,
he kind of has to be.
yeah. But in lighting, it's like night and day
I agreed.
because
And I'll be honest with you, I can't agree with you more because I find electric best boys are amazing at cable,
yep,
like cable run, like they keep everything, they keep the tightest ship. But a gaffer is a gaffer.
yep.
You know what I mean?
The gaffer's
And
really a DP that just has either hasn't crossed over or doesn't know how to get that extra 10%.
absolutely. And I mean, I can tell you from working on, and as working on some of the biggest movies. I don't want to throw that name out of
Yeah.
the biggest movie I worked on, but you can IMDb it, and I can tell you that the gaffer absolutely lit that entire thing, front to back, side to corner. He even DP'd second unit,
Yep.
and it was like, at a certain point, you're kind of sitting there going like, there's a guy over here making like, I don't know, like 10 grand a day, and you're like, and then there's a guy over here making like R rate, and
Yeah.
he's in, and
550,
he's
650.
and he's running the whole friggin' show, and you're just like, huh, like, you kind of scratch your head at a certain
Yeah.
point, like,
Well, as we know, a lot of it's politics and a lot of it's
yes,
how well poised that person is. I mean, anymore, it's who the hell knows. At least we were coming up. Yeah, there were a bunch of DPs that were kind of just lucky or idiots or whatever. But now it's like, wow, you. I mean, I guess if I were to classify it like this, the DP is in charge of the entire crew. I mean, they are your responsibility. So if you're a DP and your grips are swinging off of scaffolding for some strange reason,
yeah,
it's your job to go, guys, don't do that.
yeah, exactly.
That's not cool. Or, if the grips come to you and go, hey, we don't have the right gear, it's your job as the DP to go, what do we need?
Right. And then
Not to ignore it.
you go to the producer, because when we go to the producer, they just say, you need this is my favorite. Every time I'm like dealing with like, okay, me, the DP, gaffer, we all make a plan. I make my list, send my list in. The first thing the producer does is go, you need to tell the DP we can't afford it. And I'm like, wait a second. That's not my job. I'm a facilitator. Like
Yes.
I get asked to do things, and sometimes look, nothing is impossible. I promise you, as a key grip, I could put something in space. Do you have the money and do you have the time? That's what it is. It's literally, it always comes down to money and time. And I think a key grip could pretty much do almost anything. It's just it might be extremely expensive and take forever,
Yeah, and I
but
think back in like the 90s and stuff, it was more like maybe the DP didn't know how to do it, but I think they still trusted the crew and they
Right.
backed the crew. Whereas I feel like in the last 10 to 15 years, the producer comes up and says, well, your grips can't have this and your gaffer can't have that. And the DP goes, okay, then don't give it to them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they
And it's
show
like,
up with a 5K to light a basketball court
yeah.
and a
And
12 by to light a car.
and the director goes, where's my crane?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's funny.
okay.
I was talking to a creative one time from an agency, and he was even saying that they brought in a DP to light a car, and they had like a 12 by and a small light, and he's like, he goes, I had to.
Yeah.
Literally
It's
the
like
creative from the agency was
you
showing.
you just see it in the car with a light. You're like, what are
Yeah,
you gonna do?
yeah, but that's probably because the key grip said, well, we need the tent to stay. Said no, we can't afford it, and no, we can't afford that, and the DP said okay. It's unfortunate, but and
So
then
back in the day, and I don't know if you ever knew this, but the production companies, and this is back when production companies had buildings. And this is even, and I think NDNA or DNA, aka Do Not Answer, they were kind of one of the last ones to go out. So, I always kind of wondered, like, we're fighting over budget. I'm wondering how this place is paid for. All the shoots, when they do the budget, in the budget, it's set as like to the production company. But once they started rolling the camera, went to the production company. But once they started rolling the camera, they'd open up and be able to do overages. Now,
yeah,
overages they didn't have to pay to the production company. They'd open up and be able to do overages. Now,
yeah,
overages they didn't have to pay to the production company. It basically started creating this horrible cycle where all these agencies they were like, okay, well we'll just take the almost lowest bid. From there, all we have to do is get the crew there, get the gear, and get the camera rolling. And then the pocketbook opens up. Oh, you need extra guys? Yeah, no problem. You need this? Yeah, no problem. And I saw that happening endlessly, and it was detrimental. And it's like the amount of phone calls that I'm sure you and me have wasted on the shoot day, and it's like pocketbook's open. What do you need? And they're saying no, but then you get on the shoot day, and it's like history. And
yeah,
I wish they had tried to fix that before it really shut down a lot of these rental or production companies.
yeah.
I wish they had tried to fix that before it really shut down a lot of these rental or production companies.
Yeah, I feel like I got pretty lucky is that I just came in with a very logical and straightforward and casual approach to it.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of times they'd be like, "Do you really need the third grip?" We're on a stage, and it's like, "Well, here's the deal. Do you want to tell the director they're going to lose an hour in the beginning of the day, an hour at the end of the day,
Right.
faster, and they can start pre-wrapping before we're done. They can have two-thirds of the set wrapped." And when I told every time I told the producer that, they're like, "Oh, never thought of it that way."
I mean,
And when I told every time I told the producer that, they're like, "Oh, never thought of it that way."
when it's always funny. I always told the producer, I'm like, would you like to calculate what every single person on this crew is gonna cost you in overtime for 15 or 20 minutes? Or would you like to just give me another guy? Because that's probably easily, and I'll probably even save you more money. But it's like, when you start looking around and you're like, hey man, if it takes me an extra 15 minutes to light a set because I'm missing a guy, and then all of a sudden it's like you're paying all these people. It's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah, just the simple logic though. And that
Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes from just experience. I mean, I was
Hmm.
lucky enough to get the experience, but then work with really experienced, highly trained people who were fun to work with.
Yep.
They weren't, no one was like gouging the clock and going, oh, I'm going to just go in that.
I I
Um,
I I I'm with you. I think that like the difference between the late 2000s and even like into the teens was so much different than like the later teen eras of filming. It's like it just feels like there was a whole different crew that I don't know if it was the crew. I don't know if it was just maybe we were the old guys and we were just working the old way, which
But
was
we were
like
efficient.
which
But
was
we were
like
efficient.
yeah, and we
The
were
truth is,
honest. Like
the
I
truth,
always try to
the truth is, if we put together a team of people in our age group, and we're not old by any measure, are efficient and more cost productive than a bunch of, younger people who are willing to go, yeah, we don't need a 10-ton. We can do it with a 5-ton. We don't need 20Ks and S360s. We can do it with, S60s and 5Ks and
and I'll even the 10-ton days are like few and far between. It's just not the
because
industry.
because people with no experience say let's just get a 5K or a
Yep.
5-ton. Yeah.
Yep. We'll get some
And
LEDs. We don't need a putt. We'll figure it out. Hey,
yeah.
well, it's been an honor. I've got to run.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
dude, I love you, man. It's been so great
Thanks,
to
brother.
chat
I
with you.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Want to be an agent? Bye, man. Thank you very much.
Let's stay in touch. Let's keep this going.